Hey, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Rags to Riches. Today I have a special guest. Her name is Sandra Walters, and she will be discussing being adopted. Guys, welcome, Sandra. Hey, how are you?
I am doing well, feeling blessed to be on your podcast today.
Thank you so much for even being a guest. It is definitely an honor.
It is definitely a pleasure.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay, how old were you when you were adopted?
I was 15.
15 years old?
I was 15 years old.
Wow.
I was 15. So my adoption was not a traditional type of adoption. I was 15.
Oh, wow. Oh, goodness. I wasn't expecting that. Oh,
I was
my
adopted
God.
at 15. I was 15 and my sister was 17.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my God. Okay. Whew. That was a shocker there. Oh, my God. I am so sorry about that. So, when you were,
And you
um,
don't have to be sorry. Don't feel, any
I
type
know, but
of
I, oh,
you like what
oh
you
my
like, girl, what is this for?
God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Because
Wait, your
it's like
sister
you
was
already,
17?
because you already knew
Yeah,
your parents and you're old enough to
right,
know what's going.
right.
Ooh,
So
oh
I
goodness.
guess to answer that question being 15, like you said, I knew my parents, I knew my family. And when I say I knew my parents, I really knew my mom's side of my
Right.
family. I did not know my dad's side of the family. And our family was very dysfunctional.
Oh
So
goodness.
that's why when I posted, um, I had been praying about being adopted. I knew exactly who I wanted my parents to be. And I started praying that they be my parents when I first met them.
Oh wow. Oh wow. So with your mom was she was a single parent.
So my mom was a single parent. She had my sister when she was 18, and she had me when she was 20. Um, and she was an alcoholic. When she
Oh
was around 20 or so, and she's a single mom, she has kids. I don't know what that's like. So probably the stress of being single and, having to take care of two kids. I remember my aunts telling my mom that she needed to go out clubbing. And so that's where the drinking began. And
oh
so when
wow.
she started drinking, she got to the point where she would leave us alone when we were like 6 or 8 so she could go out clubbing. And even if we were at our grandma's house and they're drinking, she would she would tell my grandma she wants to go to the club. And so I would just be in tears. Because I didn't want her to go. But
Right.
she would just leave. But that just became the norm. And there were just lots of things in our family that I used to think was unique, but when I became a teacher, I learned that it wasn't so unique anymore. I learned that my story was just not that unique. People just didn't talk about it because we know how to keep our secrets. And I would never tell anything that was going on in my house, especially when going to school. I mean, I remember maybe the night before going to school, our uncle tried to kill all of us.
Oh my God.
That kind of dysfunction. And so I used to ask God all the time, why did you put me in this family? And I used to ask, why was she my mom? Because I just didn't see from a distance. I didn't feel like other people were going through what I was going through. So at a very young age, um, God told me that I was going to write a book, and I was
Mm,
about 11. And but it took a while before I could actually write the book. And I was just waiting for God to let me know when it was time for me to release it.
he'll
But
do
go
it.
ahead and ask,
Honey,
ask me,
hey,
ask,
hey,
ask
hey,
me the question.
oh wow, this is, honey, oh God. So, did your adopted parents, I know you said you prayed for them and you got the ones, that you prayed for. Did they have
So
kids as well?
they did have kids. So they had older kids. I probably should kind of go back so that you kind of know about them a little bit more. Uh,
Absolutely.
since I came from, dysfunctional space, I had these friends down the street, Cooney and Tina, and Tina came down the street one day and she had cake all over her shirt. And I was like, girl, where have you been? And she was like, I went to church, or I go to church, and we had a cakewalk. And so I won a whole cake at the cakewalk. And I was like, well, I want to go to your church because I want a cake. So I went home. At this time, I was living with my grandmother because our mom had basically pretty much abandoned us and just left us with our grandmother. So I was staying with my grandma. My grandmother didn't like me
Oh
because of
my
who my
God.
daddy was. But I didn't even know who my daddy was myself.
Oh
So I'm like,
wow.
she doesn't like me. I don't even know why. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, uh, she did say that I asked her, could I go to church? And she said yes. And that's where my life changed.
Hmm.
I was about 12. I was in the sixth grade or getting ready to go to the sixth grade. And so I remember getting ready to go to church, getting my clothes together, excited about going to church because I love church. Church felt good when I went to church. I love the songs and all of that. It made me feel good. Um, so, anyway, I thought we were going to ride in a car though, but we walked. Anyways, I wouldn't. My mom couldn't drive. My grandmother couldn't drive,
Oh,
so
good.
nobody had cars, and so I was. I mean, I know. Anyway, so we walked, and I was like, okay, whatever. We're walking to church, so we walked, and I remember mm, whew,
It's okay.
when they opened the door, and the greeter was Michelle Caver. She was so kind
Mm.
and just so warm. So, and she kind of introduced us to everybody, and she just seemed so happy that we were there. That was the first time I really felt like somebody was happy that I was there. Because I didn't tell you this about my story. When my mom was pregnant with me, nobody knew she was pregnant
Mm.
until her water broke and she went to the hospital. So I had a hard time, even as I got older, dealing with my birthday because I would reflect on how I came into the world. It wasn't where people were excited, people were shocked that she was pregnant. So, anyways, that's how it started. We went to church. The greeter was Michelle Caver. I loved it. I forgot about cake too. Remember, I went to church for
For
cake.
the cake.
They didn't have cake, but I enjoyed everything, the sermon, the music. I felt like I needed help, and I felt like this was the place where I was going to get it. I did
Absolutely.
not join that day. I didn't know anything about being a Christian or being saved. I said, but I'm going to be a member for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to school the next week and just thought about the church experience. And so, anyways, I ended up joining the next Sunday. And I remember being so excited about joining that he didn't actually get to have the invitation where, people can come down. I walked down and sat in the pastor's chair.
Mm.
And he was so kind. He was like, y'all, down. Bring the chairs down. So they brought the chairs down, and I went down, and he was like, just so gracious. Young lady, come down here. And so I went down there, sat in the chair. He said, I've got some questions I have to ask you. And I was like, oh, I need to pass this test. But I was like, well, come on with the questions. So I was glad the questions were yes or no.
Right.
So, that's where he asked me the questions about, did I believe Jesus died on the third day and rose? And I said, yes, yes, yes. And then he was like, you're saved, and the angels in heaven are excited about you being saved. Church, come around. You got a new family. And I was like, oh, I got a
Right.
new family. And so they all came around and hugged me.
Oh, that was special.
So from
That's
that point on, I watched the Caver family and I prayed. I didn't know, anything about church, Christianity, none of that, because I wasn't raised that way.
right.
And so I was like, I don't know if these scriptures are true. I don't know if these stories are true, but I just prayed and said, Lord, I want them to be my family. And so it took about 4 years. And then something pretty devastating happened with my family.
Mm.
And so when that happened, we immediately called Sister Caver, Pastor Caver's wife, and she came and picked us up. And
It's okay.
she came and picked us up. And I have to say this too about Sister Caver. We moved all over the Metroplex. Everywhere we moved, she came and picked us up for church on Sunday, on Saturday, on Wednesday. Whenever something was going on, they never failed to come and pick us up. They picked us up every single time the doors were open. So, anyways, she came and picked us up. And at that time, I really was thinking that this was going to be temporary, even though I had been praying for 4 years. I think I just didn't want it to end like that. So, anyways, Pastor Caver was out of town. When he came home, he said, when you guys came to the church, we wanted to adopt you from the beginning. And we just didn't know. And I was just, continuing to pray. I will have to say, though, because I was 15, they did want to adopt us officially. But I did feel like, even though, my family is my family and the way they are is the way they are, I didn't want to be officially adopted. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I knew who my family was, and they weren't perfect, but they did put in the work for most of my life. And so we chose not to change our names and be like totally official. But they did ask and offer if we wanted to change our names.
Wow. So they did adopt you and your sister both.
Yes. So from that point on, we we were a part of the Caver household.
That is awesome. And did they treat you any different from their kids?
They didn't treat us any different than their kids. Their kids were at that time, they were gone to college. I'd have wondered though, like, you go to college and then you come back with sisters. Like, but we did. We It's like we knew each other, and during holidays, we have been spending holidays with them since we first started going to the church too. So even if it was Thanksgiving, even Christmas, we had been spending Thanksgiving and Christmas with them anyway.
Oh, wow.
So, and because they're just so sweet and they were trained to be that way, never felt any kind of way as far as them being jealous or anything, or
Right.
they at that point too, they were older, so they had are adulting,
Right.
so they don't need their parents in that way, in the way we needed them at that time, but they had always shared their family with us.
Well,
Oh,
that's good. That's awesome. That
yes.
is great. So, did you not feel love because you were adopted? Like with your family, did you feel they didn't love you because you had to be adopted by someone else?
So, from my biological family.
Right.
So with my biological family, and this is of course getting older and looking at it as an adult, I don't think my mom was capable because she was not loved. So she did not know how to do that. I think she did the best she could with what she had. My mom, I don't even know her full story, because we keep these secrets, so
Mhm.
I don't know her full story, but I just don't really think she actually had the ability to do so. I do remember thinking though when I was younger, because after they came and got us, when we called them and we had that situation, we went back to get all of our stuff. And in my head, I wanted my mom to fight for us. It's like, and I know that kind of doesn't make sense. You want to be
Yes, it
adopted.
does. Yes, it
You
does.
want to be adopted, but you want your mom to fight for
No,
you.
that makes plenty of sense. If they get it, they get it. They don't, they don't. But to
But
me, it makes plenty of sense.
now I'm like, praise the Lord, she didn't fight for us. Because I think she realized that she just, if we were better off with them.
Right.
We were
Right.
better off. Yeah.
So, at the age of 15, by you being adopted, how did that make you feel?
Um, I would have to say I felt abandoned, but that was somewhat the norm of my life. Does that make sense? So, uh, being adopted and not letting people know, like, I'm not telling people this. Why? Because I remember in high school, there was a girl that was adopted, and they would call her the adopted girl. I'm
Kids can
not,
be
I'm not,
cruel.
I'm not going to be, I don't know if she knew that, but
Right.
I'm not going to be the adopted girl. So I was quiet about a lot of things because I did not want to be associated or labeled that way.
Right.
And so, again, I was quiet too because I just did not want people to really know who I was. And also, I mean, I am from the hood.
Hello.
And
I
yeah,
understand that.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and even though my family might be dysfunctional, they're still my family.
Right.
And so I had this one lady say, because I wrote the title of my book is Secrets, Why Was I Born in This Family? And she said, "Oh, I get it. You don't like your family." No, I don't think you get it. When people come from situations like mine, it's not that we don't like them, and we would never use those words. Our family is just our family. So where they're there, nobody's family is perfect anyway, but they're not perfect, but they're still my family. I will have to say it was hard to just show up as me in the full.
Mm.
Saying you're adopted, saying you come from a dysfunctional family, all that stuff, it sounds hard. But I realized something, and you can I was like, I hope I don't get past your questions.
No, you okay.
I realized something, some things, even adoption, can be an assignment, and it's not necessarily forever. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I always ask that. That's a teacher in me that's trying to make sure my students make sense.
It's okay. It's a habit.
It is. It is. I'm like,
It's okay.
so, but what God reminded me of is me not showing up as me steals the testimony. And because here's the thing, as far as a caver is concerned, going to college, graduating, getting married, having kids, that's the norm. But my testimony is that I'm not a caver. I am me. And that's not where I come from. I am who I am because of him. And I have to make sure that the world knows that I'm me because of him, and not because of anyone or anything else. So there became a point where God was like, Sandra, you have to show up as you. You have to show up as how far I've brought you, because that's where your testimony is.
Okay, so this is getting deep. I love it though. So how often was it talked about, you being adopted, like you going on any other platforms or anything?
We didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about that. No, absolutely not. I can keep a secret. I'm good at it.
Nothing wrong with that, because I got it. There's nothing wrong with that. And have you ever been on any other podcast or anything to
I
even
have
discuss
not.
this?
This is the first time that I have ever shown up
Thank you.
as as adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all hear that now?
Let me say this, because I need to make sure that I honor anybody who adopts kids. It's not easy, because you bring in someone who has a lot of trauma that has nothing to do with you, and you open up. And some people, they alter their whole lives so they can show up for an adopted kid.
True.
Like Pastor Caver and Sister Caver, they were empty nesters. They could have been like, well, I'm done. Instead, they opened up their hearts and their lives to me, as well as Michelle and Dimitri Caver. They allowed us in the space to share their parents. Not everybody can do that. So I honor anybody who has adopted kids. I asked Pastor Caver before he passed away. Okay, because now I'm an adult with my own kids.
Right.
Because we know how hard it is with your own biological kids,
Don't we? I
right?
got three.
And so you're gonna add some kids. So at that time, Pastor Caver was dying.
Oh,
I asked him, I said, why did you do it? And he cried.
mm,
And he said, it was the right thing to do. I didn't have a choice.
man of God.
And what I know about Pastor Caver too is he had an issue with his dad. So he probably understood me a little bit more. He probably understood my sister a little bit more, and that he knew what being abandoned felt like.
Mm,
And I told him when he told me it was just the right thing to do. I said, I'm going to tell the world what you did.
you
Because,
doing it?
oh gosh,
You okay?
being connected with the Caver family in their assignment that God had for them changed my life, changed the legacy of my family. Um, I'm just so grateful when I see adopted kids that are not grateful to parents that adopted them. It makes me angry,
I can imagine.
because as an adult I know even more. So as a kid I didn't quite understand what all they had to do because I was not a parent. But as a parent, I know what all they had to do for some kids that were not biologically theirs. And I am so grateful.
That is awesome. Okay, I have Misha. She says, I know that place. I just started to fully show up as me at the age of 37. So I know exactly what you mean. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is good. So what were your thoughts and your feelings uh did that provoke?
Being adopted,
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. Why? I could cover up my dysfunctional family.
That's understandable.
So, like for instance, when somebody shows up at school, it's Pastor Caver. And he's all intelligent. And I remember him meeting my English teacher. And my English teacher was like, wow, I really enjoyed your dad. Yeah, I don't, yeah, if he had met, yeah, that would have been a different experience. But again, too, I was not used to support.
Right.
So the reason I can write a whole book about my family is because they're not really going to know. And not only that, nobody really knows who my real mom is because she didn't show up. So
Mm,
it's not like they're gonna be like, I can't believe she wrote that about her mother. Nobody knows who she is. So,
mm.
so it was nice just to have people to show up for you and support you, as well as like with Pastor Caver and Sister Caver, they were always teaching. So he was actually a teacher, and he was a band teacher. And so he also did Upward Bound. I don't know if you know what that is, but Upward Bound is like this college thing. So when I was a senior in high school, I mean, I always wanted to go to college, but I didn't know how I was going to get there because nobody in my family had gone to college. He just came home with all of these college scholarship papers as well as financial aid papers. I filled it all out and ended up going to college for free
That's
because of,
awesome.
because of what he knew about how to get scholarship money. And I will have to say too, because I didn't have the Caver name, I could use my mom's information um, to get some of the like because if I use their information, probably wasn't getting much.
Right.
So that was a benefit of
Right.
actually, keeping my maiden name.
That's awesome. So, would you adopt?
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
No,
mm-mm, mm-mm.
it's hard.
One time I went to like this foster care meeting because I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I will, do some foster kids. Um, no, because
No.
once they talked about all that it took,
Right.
no. Now, if God said, Sandra, you have to do this, then definitely. But me on the opposite end and knowing how, because the Capers, I mean, they didn't really know what they were going to have to deal with by, you know, having these adopted kids. So, I mean, no.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And then, like you say, it's a process. It's a lot. And then with you guys, y'all were teenagers. That's like
Right.
a
And that I'm glad you mentioned that because he also said when I asked him about why did he do it, he said his other pastor friends told him not to do it
oh wow,
because we were teenage girls.
right.
And so yes, he told me that they told him not to do it.
So have you ever told? Because you say you have kids. Have you ever sat down and told them um, your story?
Well, I wrote it in a book, so they have all the details. But yes, I've always been very open with my kids.
That
Yes.
is great. So, do you still keep in contact with your adoptive parents? I know you said the dad he passed away. So the mom, is she still?
So they both passed away.
Oh,
Yes, they
oh
both
God,
passed away.
wow. And your parents are um
So my mom is still alive, and my dad, he passed away.
oh wow,
Um, so my mom, with her, because our situation was so rocky, my mother-in-law with her sweet self. She said, "Why don't you create a new narrative?" And so now I have my assigned time when I go and visit with my mom biweekly so that we can create a new narrative.
Right. So you basically just trying to give her that second chance.
Right. She's totally a different person now because she's older.
Right. Right.
So yeah, why not? I mean, I don't want to, I mean, definitely I have forgiven her. Um,
Right.
I want her to be able to have that space. Also, I don't want to feel guilty that I never spent time with my mom either.
Right.
So I just can't do that. But God is so interesting.
Mm.
One of the things that he told me with my mom that I had to always do is celebrate her for her birthday and celebrate her for Mother's Day. And so she knows she's always going to get something from me at those times. And so, anyways, what I learned in writing the book about my family is that my mom, I don't know if she really ever felt like she was loved. So God said, I'm going to have to show her that.
Right.
So that's what I try to do. I'm not going to tell you that I'm perfect at it, but that's what I do try to do.
Well, that's all you can do is
I'm
try.
a work in progress.
I think we all are in some way. Do you have any advice for someone who's going through the same thing that you went through as a child?
Can I say something like about adopted parents?
Absolutely.
So, sometimes I think when people adopt kids and they cannot meet their biological parents until they're 18, the parents have a hard time allowing them to do that. Um, but any adopted kid, and this is me in the space of a teacher that I've seen, they all want to know, who doesn't want to know who their mom
Right.
and dad is. So that's just normal. Um, and I do understand people are different, different personalities and different reasons, but don't get upset if they want to know who they are.
Right.
Because with the cavers, I mean, he was like 6 foot. I'm 4'8". Okay. And so if you like look different and if they're adopted, they probably do look different. They have questions about, well, why do I look like this? Or why do I do this? Because there are some things that are genetic. And you don't even have to be around your parents. And you just automatically do it.
True.
Or you might look like a lot of people in your family because they're your biological family. But don't feel unsafe by allowing them to be able to meet them at some point. I've had students where they were adopted and they did not know. Um, but I feel like they kind of knew. Does that make sense? They they didn't know, but they're like, mm, mm,
So they
I
see the difference in
wonder
their
if I.
parents, and they see that they don't look like that person, like you said. So they probably feel like, something ain't right, or
I don't know, or there's that
right.
family member that says something that's kind of weird because the
Hmm.
family member knows that.
Right.
So I just wonder, there are some people that Don't ever plan on telling them. But because we have things like ancestry.com,
There's ways.
at some point you do have to tell the child. I had one student and he was adopted and his aunt was taking care of him. He just treated her like trash.
Mm.
But he didn't know that she put her life on hold for him.
Mm.
Oh, I think he needs to know. So,
Mm.
but anyways,
Mm.
I'm sure, I don't know if they have, but they should have
Right.
adoption type of counseling so that even the parents know a little bit more about how to operate as far as letting the kids know who they are. Um,
Absolutely.
but at a mature age, that so they can deal with it.
Absolutely. Okay, and I know you said that you wrote a book, so you can let the viewers know where they can purchase your book and the name of it, and if they want to follow you on any social media platforms, you can give them that as well.
Okay, the name of the book is Secrets: Why Was I Born in This Family by Sandra Walters, and you can get it on Amazon. And you can find me on Facebook. My name Sandra Walters. Also, my website is sandraannwalters.com.
All right, guys. So you guys make sure you go follow her. Make sure you guys go purchase that book. And I want to thank you so much, Sandra, for coming on and being a guest. I enjoyed it so much, and we've definitely learned some things. And the ones that's out there that is going through, have been through the same thing that Sandra has, don't be afraid. Again, thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you. And
You're
guys,
so
I
welcome.
do want to let you know that a lot of people reached out to me and said, I've been adopted. I was adopted. I was about adopted. And our, I get it, our stories may be a little bit different, but hey, reach out. Let people know. Honor the people who did the hard work of adopting you.
Absolutely. You heard it from her, guys. Again, thank you, my viewers, for coming on and supporting, watching. Until next time, peace.
All right.